This is the Out of Sight Cooking Club First Meeting Frightening Finger Cookies Recipe Review. This is called the Out of Sight Cooking Club. Welcome to our video sessions. Thank you for joining in. This is simply a review of a recipe and some of the methods that we're going to use that you already know. For anyone who wants to join in with us, we're going to be making the Frightful finger cookie recipe today, and we're just going to be going through some recipes for low vision and other special needs. So I'm going to go through a couple different methods in this recipe for measuring, and you use the one that works the best for you. So here we go. We're going to make the Frightful finger cookies, and to begin with, I already preheated the oven to 300 degrees. So I've already gotten that all the way. And the first thing that we want to do is we have to have 1 cup of unsalted butter. And the first thing that we talk about doing always is to get all of your ingredients together. That's called mise en place. And we talked about that this past summer. So get a tray and get the ingredients together that you need for your recipe. I've already done that. So I have all the ingredients together for the recipe, and because my butter needed to be brought to room temperature, I took my butter and I cut it up in little cubes and brought it to room temperature. So I already have that done. I also ground my own nuts, so I have those done. So I have a little bit done ahead here. Now, as I get my ingredients weighed, then I will take them and I'll move them to another tray so that I know those are the ingredients that I have weighed up, and I've kept my location where I know where everything's at. The trays keep me from knocking things over because of my visual impairments and keeping everything where I can locate it. So I take them from the tray where I gathered all of my items, I weigh them up, and then I put them on another tray, and then from that tray I'll put them into the product that I'm making. So here we go with our first item. We need our 1 cup of unsalted butter. Now, as I said, I already have that ready to go, and I'm going to take that and I'm going to put it in my mixing bowl. Now, I have a mixer here, a stand mixer. It's my KitchenAid. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to put my 2 sticks of butter, which is, otherwise if you have a talking scale, it's 8 ounces. So we've got 1 cup of butter, which in translation for you is 2 sticks if you buy by sticks, or if you have a talking scale, that will be 8 ounces. For that, and I have my garbage bowl down here, so I'm going to get rid of that. So I've put in my 2 sticks of butter, okay, into my mixing bowl. So I just took the foil and I used it kind of like a little funnel and I dumped it in. So then the next thing that the recipe asked for is 3/4 of a cup of powdered sugar. So then I need to weigh that up, and I'm going to take my nuts and get them off of my flexible mat. I have 2 flexible cutting mats here, which I use to funnel ingredients. They're nice for catching things. I have one to catch items underneath, and I have one here in case I need to use it as a funnel. Alright, so I'm going to measure up my powdered sugar now. So I've got my bag of powdered sugar. I'm going to take a 1/4 and a 1/2 cup to get my 3/4 of a cup, or if you have the Braille measuring cups, I believe there's a 3/4 of a cup in there. So there's 2 different ways I'm going to go through measuring with you. The first way I'm going to use with the powdered sugar seems to work better for me with powdered sugar. I'm just going to go down into the bag and use my hand with the measuring cup, go down into the bag with the measuring cup, and then I'm just going to use my hand. I'm not really going to pack it down, I'm just going to level it off, okay? And then that's 1/4 of a cup. So I'm going to put that over here into the bowl out of the mixer. Okay, so that's my 1/4 cup. And then I'm going to take my green, because I can see color still, 1/2 cup. The other hand,
and
then I'm going to do the same thing with the 1/2 cup.
So the 1/4 and the 1/2 cup then will give you my 3/4 of a cup. Again, I'll reiterate, if you have the Braille, I believe there's a 3/4 cup in that. So just use your 3/4 cup and you only have to do 1. But me, I don't have the Braille, so we'll do this. So then again, I think I'm a little overdone there. Okay, so then 1/4 and 1/2 is 3/4. So I have my 3/4 of a cup. And then I just put my cups back onto that tray so that I'm not making a mess. And then I will just get rid of my powdered sugar. So I'm finished with it. Okay, so then, now then the recipe says next, I'm going to put my paddle on my mixer. And then it says to cream the powdered sugar and the butter. Let me get my iPad out of the way here for a second. So I'm going to start on the low speed to incorporate the butter into the powdered sugar. Okay, go the lowest speed there is. Okay, sometimes if you pulse it a little bit, that helps. That way the powdered sugar doesn't fly all over the room. And then I can hear as the powdered sugar and the butter incorporate. And as I hear that they have incorporated, I can kind of actually hear that don't ever stick your hand inside of the bowl. Okay, but I can kind of hear that, and then I'll turn it up a little bit and let it fly around and cream. And then I can hear that it flew off of the paddle and it's kind of flipping around a little bit more, and so my powdered sugar should become a little bit more creamy. And then I'm going to go over after a minute here, and I'm going to get a spatula and I'm going to lower the bowl, go around the edge of the bowl with the spatula, and I'm going to check and see my consistency. Alright, now I'm going to lower the bowl and then just take my spatula around the bowl to check the consistency. And also, I will use a spatula to clear the batter from the side of the bowl so that I don't end up with some of the flour or some of the sugar and butter mixture that doesn't get blended in. Okay. So it seems nicely creamed. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and beat this now. It looks like it's incorporated until it's light and fluffy. Okay, stop the mixer. Don't ever stick your hand inside of a mixer while it's running. Lower the mixer. And then you can feel the consistency has changed to a much lighter consistency as you take the spatula and run it down the sides. You can feel it's a much more fluffy product than it was before. It went from kind of a dense product to a lighter base product. So now I'll go ahead, raise the mixer blade back up, or lower the mixer blade again. Actually raise the bowl in my case, dependent on the mixer. In other words, I'm getting ready to mix again. How's that? I walked over to the refrigerator to get the vanilla. Keeping your vanilla cool, or a liquid that's not an oil base, is easier if it's cool. The reason being that you can feel it whenever it reaches the top. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a spoon. I need a teaspoon. Okay, so then I'm going to take that teaspoon, and I can take a clean measuring cup, and then I'm going to line the two handles up. One handle lined up with the other. The larger cup on the bottom, the spoon running handle along with handle on the top. Then I'm going to take I'm going to grip the two handles together, and I'm going to line my thumb down the two handles with the nub of my thumb kind of over the part where I'm going to be pouring the liquid. Now, the reason that I'm doing this is because I'm going to pour the vanilla into the spoon. And vanilla is kind of expensive. I don't want to waste it. So if any runs over, I have a clean cup below to catch it, and then I can pour it back into my cup and use a funnel to do so. Now, there are other ways to do this, which we'll do different ways, and so that you see different methods, but this is one way. We could use a pour method, but not everybody has a pourer, so I'm going to use this method. So using the finger, actually I'm using my third finger on that hand that I'm holding the bottle of vanilla on. The left hand holding the two handles together and the two items in place. Now I'm pouring the vanilla into the spoon. Again, if anything goes over and I don't feel it when it reaches my thumb, it's just going to fall into the measuring cup that I've got directly, I'm holding below it. So now I'm going to should start pouring here in a second. Okay? Now I felt that it touched my thumb and so that it's full. Now I'm going to go over here to my mixing bowl and I'm just going to take my spoon, lift it gently, take my cup out from under it, and then I'm going to pour it. Now then I'll put the cap back up on the vanilla and then put it over here out of the way and then put it away. So I also had a mat below me to catch any residue in case I was messy, because vanilla is not the easiest thing to do. So now we're then going to go on to the salt. I have a salt shaker that distributes a 1/4 teaspoon at a time. So this one's going to be really super easy for me. I'm just going to go over here and I'm going to hit the button on top of it and distribute a 1/4 teaspoon once. And then I need a 1/2 teaspoon, so I'm going to hit the 1/4 teaspoon again twice. Okay? So I've got my 1/2 teaspoon. So that one was easy and I almost put it on the wrong tray. So I've got my 1/2 teaspoon of salt there. 1 3/4 cup of flour, and we're going to mix in between each bit that we add in. So what I'm going to do, so we don't forget where we're at, adding a 1/4 cup at a time, is I'm going to use a perfect bowl and a cup. So I'm just going to put my measuring cup over top my perfect bowl. And we'll put the flour in my 1 cup measure cup, a scoop at a time. And what falls over, I'm using the same method as I did with the spoon. Okay? But I'm heaping it up here and intentionally letting it fall over because I know I've got a clean container underneath. And then I have a spreader, and then I'm just going to go from to the back and to the front, and it's a flat spreader and it's just going to even off the top of it. So I've got 1 even cup. Did that make sense? Okay, so what I did is I just heaped up my cup of flour, and then I took a flat spreader, you could even use a kitchen knife, and then you just level it off, and then just let that flour go into either your container, because it's clean, you can put it back into your canister. I used my perfect bowl. So now then I'm just going to use my perfect bowl again, and I'm just going to, because I know it was clean, right back into my canister. So now I have 1 cup of flour, and now then I need 3/4. So I'm going to do 3/4. So I'm going to use this other one because that one I had a little vanilla on it. So we got 1 cup here, 1/4 cup here, I apologize. And then again, I'm just kind of going backwards and then forwards with this spreader to level it off. So I've got a level 1/4 cup, and so that's 1. Again, I'm just going to take my 1/4 cup and go right down into my flour and heap it up. Okay, that's another way of doing it. As long as you know your cup is clean and I'm using this spreader and I'm leveling it off. I'm going right into the perfect cup. That's 2. And then again, down into the flour. And going forward and pushing my flour back into the container. And then 3. Okay, so 3/4 of a cup of flour. So now I have 1 3/4 of a cup of flour in my perfect bowl. All right, so now then we're just going to start our mixer up on slow and let our vanilla blend in there along with our salt. We're going to take our 1/4 cup shut the mixer off, put a 1/4 cup in, and turn it back on for a second. Shut the mixer off, turn it back on for a second. And a quarter cup at a time we'll have this blend in. Another way you could do this if you feel comfortable with it is with the perfect bowls, they do have wings to funnel and they have a little notch on the side that will hold them on the side of the bowl. So if you were pouring liquid into a bowl or something like that, you could do that. But I don't feel comfortable telling you to put your hands that close to a mixing bowl. So I think better that you shut the mixer off, add the quarter cup, take the cup away, and then turn the mixer back on. And just continue that process until you've added all of your flour. And that's 1 3/4 cup of flour. Now, I'm at the very end, so I'm just going to take my spatula and go to the edge with the perfect bowl and let that funnel on that perfect bowl work for me and kind of push the rest of the flour in. And I'm all finished. And then mix in the rest of the flour. Now, the last thing that goes in after the flour is all incorporated is the nuts. So when 1 cup of nuts is being mixed in, I'm going to put them in a half at a time. Again, I put in half. I turn on the mixer and let it mix a little bit. Put in the other half. Give my bowl a pat to make sure they all jump out of there. Okay, it's starting to sound. Can you feel or hear the thickness of it? When you can't see, you kind of have to hear. You hear that the mixer gets a little wobblier, and you can kind of hear the thickness of the dough. And then I'm going to take the mixer down and kind of touch it, and it feels about right. Okay? So now I always reread my recipe via using the iPad reader or whatever I need to do, and then make sure that I got everything, and then go over what my next step is. 1 heaping tablespoon. In my case, it's going to be 1 cookie scoop leveled off, okay? And then we're going to shape them into fingers. We want them to be 3 inches long, okay? About the shape of your finger. Only they're witch's fingers. They're frightening witch's fingers. And so we want to make them a little bit crooked. So we don't want a perfect finger here. We want them to be kind of crooked. So that's what we're going for. So 3/4 of an inch wide and about 3 inches long. So I'll start scooping up the cookies now, okay? So here we go. I have a number 40 ice cream scoop or cookie scoop. And so I'm just going to make a scoop and I'm going to level it off. It's very easy, very efficient. And then I'm going to just push the lever and release the scoop of cookie dough. And I'm going to do that several times. But I'm going to do that until all my cookie dough is actually gone. But I'm going to go through just a few cookies to tell you verbally as best I can how to make them. But just in general, it's going to be, we're going to make them like your cookies, or like your fingers, only cookies. And they're going to be slightly ugly because they're going to be Halloween ones that are basically to resemble a witch's finger. So, here we go. I've got several cookies scooped up here so we can work through them. So, I made round scoops, and I have a sheet pan, half sheet pan technically, and I have a silicone mat, baking mat, and in the class we will probably use just white parchment paper. Take these little scoops that I've made, and they're about the size of almost as big as a golf ball. Like I said, another number 40 scoop or a heaping tablespoon, okay? And then you make them, take them and you give them a roll to get them a little bit more pliable, and then You roll them between both of your palms, kind of like you do Play-Doh when you're trying to get some length in it. Just take it and roll it back and forth between your two palms, vertically up and down is how I'm rolling it. I take my palm and I push it to the top of my palm with one and to the bottom of the other, and then I reverse it to get the length. And then I've got a long, about 3 inches long cylinder made that way, and it's about 3/4 of an inch around. It's the shape of your finger, okay? And then it looks perfect, but I don't want it to be perfect. I want it to be ugly. So then I take each of my fingers and I pinch on one end and pinch on the other, and just slightly I push one direction and push the other to make it a little bit crooked, because I want my witch's fingers to be crooked. And then I take an almond or a pecan. I'm going to use pecans this time. And I take in the fingernail end, and I just, in the very end where your fingernail goes, so just use your fingernails or your finger as a guide here, I just take and push just a little bit where you smoosh it down about half of its volume, and put the fingernail and press the fingernail into place. And that's it. Now, if you want to get fancy dancy and you want to be really special, you can use some red fingernail polish to make it look red. But personally, in my vision of witches, they have ugly brown crusty looking fingernails just like a pecan. So I always just leave them brown. Or if I'm doing the almonds, sometimes I hit them with a little bit of food coloring so it looks like they got fingernail polish on. But I typically use the pecans, and I typically just leave them. It's less work, less hassle. So this is your own choice. It's a creative choice. And then the next thing I do after I get my finger formed and I get my nail in place is then I take just a butter knife or a plastic butter knife, and then you've got your fingernail, so then feel back to where your middle knuckle's at, okay? And then just put 3 small, slight indentations in for your knuckles. 1, 2, 3 little ones, and then go back and do the same. 1, 2, 3. If you want to put little knuckles right up by your fingertip, you can there too. 1, 2, 3. You kind of feel your finger, and you want the same thing going on here, okay? So at the end, at there. Okay, so you just use your own creativity here. So I'll make a couple more here. So I take my round ball, I give it a little swirl in my 2 palms, and then I start going upwards with my palm and downwards with the other palm, and then I just kind of let it roll from one end of the palm to the other end of the palm as I go up and down with my 2 hands. Does that make sense to you? And it just becomes cylindrical as I do that. And as I feel that it's reached the about 3-inch size and about 3/4 inch in width, then I go ahead and lay it down and I give it a little bit of crook. They don't all have to be identical. And then I reach into my bags of pecans, which I probably shouldn't do that because my hands are starting to get greasy now. I get myself a nice whole pecan. I put it in where the fingernail is going to be at. Just give it a little slight push. And then again, I go back usually and I do my little lines for my knuckles. But I'll give you the knuckles in. And then when you get them all done, then you put them in the oven and let them bake for 25 minutes. The oven was set at 300 degrees and the cookies baked on regular oven setting, not convection, as to not confuse you, on regular oven setting, 300 degrees for 25 minutes exactly, and they're perfectly done. So I'm going to go over to the oven and I'm going to tell you that I have on 2 silicone gloves. So I'm going to the oven, and with my left hand I'm going to locate the side of my oven. Okay, with my right hand I'm going to put my hand on the oven door. Okay, I'm going to pull the oven door down. As I do that, I'm going to take with my right hand. With my left hand, I'm going to take my hand in and I'm going to locate my rack. Knowing that I put my cookies on the top rack, I'm going to go down and feel along the edge of the left-hand side of my oven for the first rack. and I'm coming in, I'm going to find that rack, and I'm going to grab a hold of it with my silicone mitt on, and I'm going to pull my rack out. Now, knowing where the location of it is now, I'm going to take my right hand side, I'm going to go under my cookie pan, I'm going to pull it out. And I'm going to take my cookies out with my right hand side. I've already placed a silicone cylinder to set them on my counter. My left hand, using it, mitts on both hands. I'm closing the oven door. And of course I have to go back and shut that off. Okay, grabbing the pan with both hands. And now I'm going to set this on a counter protector so that it doesn't burn my counter, so that my counter is protected and I don't put a hot pan directly on my countertop. So now my cookies are done perfectly, and they're going to cool a little bit before we eat them. So our cookies are all finished, and we'll see y'all at Out of Sight Cooking Club. Take care.